Okay, and now we're just going to have that quick little delay that Facebook is so famous for while we stream over. I'm getting my other screen going because we're going to have two because I'm fancy that way. And now we're going to go meet our mighty mystery fans. All right, we are live. Welcome, mighty mystery friends. I'm your on-air host, Sarah DeVello, and I am thrilled to be broadcasting live from the Boreal Forest, home of Wolverines today, in honor of our featured author, Alice Henderson, whose brand new book, A Solitude of Wolverines, is out today. Alice, welcome. Tell us about your book.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate being on the show.
Hey, we're so happy to have you. Tell us all about A Solitude of Wolverines.
Well, A Solitude of Wolverines is the first book in a new thriller series, and it features Alex Carter, who's a wildlife biologist who takes a job studying the wolverine population on a large piece of protected land in northwestern Montana. And wolverines are very rare, elusive creatures who used to live in this area, but after a ski resort opened there and operated for decades, wolverines vanished. So now a land trust owns the land and has hired Alex to find out if wolverines have returned to the area. So she places remote cameras out in the field in the hopes of capturing images of these rare creatures. But when she reviews the footage, she's startled to see images of a severely injured man wandering around on the preserve. But when she sets out to help him, she realizes too late that she stumbled on a secret that someone will kill to protect.
Yikes! Oh my God, I'm already so excited and so terrified. And that sounds so freaking juicy. I cannot wait to read it. And I know all of our friends on Facebook are feeling the same thing. So I just want to welcome everybody who's watching on Facebook. Hey, Gail. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Gail is saying, another nice virtual background, Sarah. Thank you so much, Gail. Thanks for noticing. So I have to confess, I did not know that Wolverines were a real creature. I just thought they were the Hugh Jackman superhero. So when I knew I was going to have Alice on, I quickly Googled Wolverines and where they live. And it turns out they live in the boreal forests of Canada and the northern part of the US. So I found a boreal forest background. And here I have the very little known blonde Wolverine, the very rare and vicious blonde Wolverine who likes to wear a turquoise sweater known as Kalu. And she will be co-hosting with me today, scaring away all the real Wolverines should any choose to meet us here in the boreal forest. Susan, welcome, welcome everybody. So if you've been here before, you know how it works. And if you're new, welcome, welcome, welcome. My partner in crime, pun intended, Margaret Pernard, my fellow author, friend, and fellow Blazer, is handling things over on Facebook. So if anybody has any questions for Alice about Wolverines, because you know what? Alice is a real world, real life wildlife researcher who has worked to study and preserve the very rare wolverines and other species, including bats, which is absolutely amazing. And so she can answer any questions that you have about, oops, my little co-host is getting feisty over here. If she can answer any questions that you have about Wolverines, about her writing process, about writing a thriller about Wolverines, anything you want to know, just get those questions going in the comments. Welcome, Darlene. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Susan. Welcome, everybody. Let us know what questions what questions you have, and Alice will be happy to answer them. Now, I know it always takes me a minute to think of questions because usually I think of them at 3 a.m. the next day. So hopefully that's not happening to you. But while you're thinking, I'm just going to hop over and share a few words of praise that this book is racking up because they are amazing. #1 New York Times bestselling author James Rollins raves a true stunner of a thriller debut, both a mystery and a survival story. Yum. I love those. Here is a novel written with a naturalist's eye for detail and an unrelenting pace. It reminded me of The Best of Nevada Bar, where the wilderness itself is as much a character as the feisty wildlife biologist who must solve a crime in a remote town where no one is talking and everyone is a suspect. It is so fraught with excitement and wondrous details that it demands to be read in one sitting and savored afterward. Do not miss it. Wow, incredible review from James there. Nevada Barr saying, what a treat. Alice Henderson has delivered a treasure of a novel and to readers' delights, a promise of more. Where this came from, her depiction of the natural world in all its beauty and terror is spot on. Into this, she weaves a cast of characters, both original and fascinating, as well as a heroine who does the unbelievable, yet one can believe it. A great read. Douglas Preston, #1 bestselling co-author of Relic and Crooked River, says, I can't wait for the next one. This is a thriller with a heart, a riveting story of conspiracy, murder, and wilderness survival that will keep you turning the pages. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on. Al going back saying, it is a compelling, nail-biting story that kept me on the edge of my seat from the very first page. This is incredible. So Alice, tell us about this book. How long did it take you to write it? Why now?
Well, so I've long been, as you said, a wildlife researcher and then a writer as well. But for years, I kept those two things separate. I wrote in a different genre. And though I sometimes had wildlife themes, it certainly wasn't the center of the books that I wrote. So one day I was out actually recording wolves in northwestern Montana, where this book is set. And I had also set up remote cameras in the hopes of capturing some wolverines on this big wildlife preserve. And I thought, why don't I bring these two worlds together? And I love thrillers. So I thought, this remote setting, you're way out there in the middle of nowhere. It's so beautiful. What a great suspenseful place to set it. And also in the book, the wildlife biologist is put up in this, as I said, that's a site of an old ski resort. So there's an old lodge there that's fallen into disrepair, and they sort of fixed up a couple rooms for researchers to stay in, but it's this creepy, cavernous, like wind is blowing through broken windows and the floorboards are missing in places, and you open a stairway door and there's no stairs. And I was actually inspired by, I was studying some bats, and I was on a wildlife reserve that had been the site of this huge convention center back in the 80s that talked about solar power and all kinds of neat stuff. But it had closed down and had fallen completely into disrepair, and bats had moved into it. And it was this creepy, cavernous, dark, broken windows. And I thought, wow, I should bring this creepy setting to this rural Montana, beautiful Rockies setting, and combine the two, and then put my wildlife research in there. And I feel so passionately about wildlife and the plight that it's facing. And I really wanted to bring attention to some species that are really suffering and don't have protections. And the wolverine is one of these species. There's less than 300 left in the contiguous US.
Oh my God.
And so I really wanted this to be the first species. And my idea was to have the series be, each book would be a different endangered species. And the titles would be the group name and then the animal name, like a parliament of owls or a murder of crows or so on. So I thought, oh, great, what's the group name for Wolverine?
Yeah.
And I found out there is no group name for Wolverines. They're so solitary, they're never in groups, unless it's like a mom with her kids. And the fathers, actually, and this is really rare for carnivores, the dads will also take the kits out in the forest and show them the ropes and show them the best scavenging sites and things like that. It's incredibly rare. So they're really unique animals, and they have no protections at all. So in the US, so it's really unfortunate due to over trapping and government run poisoning programs for predators. And now climate change, they're really disappearing at a fast rate. They rely on very dense snowpack to have their kits in. They dig way down, like many, many feet down into the snow, and have these cool, complex chambers. Like they'll have a living room and a sleeping room and a nursing room and a bathroom. And it's really amazing.
Wow. That is amazing. That's crazy. Wait, how big is a wolverine? Is it a big bear? Is it a little creature? What is it? Like, how big is this guy?
So they average about 35 pounds. That's it. And some are like 25 pounds, some are like 45. If you were to see one, they are really hardy creatures. They're the largest member of the weasel family, actually, even though you're right, they look like small bears. And they roam tirelessly over the backcountry. Like they never stop, and they can climb near vertical surfaces. in a matter of minutes. Like things that would take us humans technical gear and maybe days to summit a mountain, they'll just go straight up it in like an hour. In fact, some Wolverine researchers in Glacier National Park had a GPS collar on a Wolverine, and they clocked this guy climbing 5,000 vertical feet up a mountain in 90 minutes. So they truck as if it's just, they'll go up vertical surfaces as if it's just flat. And they just roam. They're important scavengers. So they roam from carcass site to carcass site. They rely on bigger predators to take down the prey. So like wolves and grizzlies, they'll scavenge their kills, and they will eat things that have like skeletons that have been out on the desert floor for 3 years. They'll eat the bones and the teeth. They'll eat everything. And they're just amazing. So that's the fact that grizzly bears aren't doing well and wolves aren't doing well here also means that's less food for the Wolverine to eat. Right. Although Wolverines have been known, though they're only like 35 pounds, to take down moose and to drive grizzly bears off kills. Like they're really fierce. So
wow. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I think I'm just still fascinated by the fact that they build a whole house under the snow, a multi-chamber room. So they dig a hole down and then dig out a little room and then a tunnel to another room.
Yes, and their favorite thing to do is to den under fallen white bark pines, which are these huge, beautiful pines that kind of grow in clusters in the high country. So they'll use that as like the top shelter. They'll dig down. Yeah, and they'll have all these rooms where, like they have one where the mother can nurse the kits, and then a whole separate room where they go to the bathroom, and a whole separate room where they sleep, and they can be really complex. And the mothers are very careful. So they'll usually do this several times over the course of nursing these kits. They'll pick up the kits in their mouths, move to a whole new area, excavate a whole other burrow under a white bark pine, and they'll move like 2 or 3 times before the kits are big enough to leave the burrow. So it's really amazing.
Wow, that is fascinating. Karen is saying, oh my gosh, Karen and I are of one mind. Karen is saying, wow, this is fascinating. Gail is saying, this is also scary and amazing. I'm just browsing through the comments. This is just so cool. So why do you think they have the different rooms?
I think it's to just be really clean, and make sure that the kits, like if something does dig down into there, that they have other ways to get out, other rooms to move into. And Wolverine researchers have noticed that they'll actually, if they have a collar, a VHF radio collar around a mother Wolverine, and they see that she's kind of hanging out in the same place a lot, like it's pinging from one location, they'll figure that she probably has a den there. So they're trying to, figure out the population dynamics of these Wolverines. So they'll go to the den site and dig up the kits to tag them as well. And then the mom always moves it. She's always like, forget this. No. And
this place is ruined.
She'll hang out too, like right next to the researchers, like, what do you think you're doing? And they'll tag the little kits, but even if they put them back, the mom's like, nope. And she'll dig a whole new thing.
But she takes them with her, even after they have been tagged. Wow. No, when you said she's watching the researchers, but she's not trying to attack the researchers.
That's really rare. Like Wolverines they just kind of want to be away from humans. So okay. Really the only time you hear stories of human Wolverine conflict, it's because like a trapper has trapped one and is approaching the trap. And understandably, the Wolverine's like, I'm going to.
Yeah, of course, because it's in pain and trapped.
Right.
Yeah, of course. Exactly. Wow. So, okay. So they have a nursing room, a living room, a bathroom. So that's an evolved creature. That's an evolved sentient being that wants to keep herself clean, wants to keep her babies clean, wants to have, an escape route. This is a sophisticated animal.
Definitely. They're very intelligent. And sometimes they'll even line, I mentioned that they den under white bark pine. They'll take off little slivers and floor. They'll like do flooring on the bottom of these snow dens, like little wooden planks.
So, wow. So Wolverines, like most of us, appreciate a beautiful pine hardwood floor. Right. No carpeting for them. They like the hardwood. That's amazing. I had no idea. I'm absolutely fascinated. This is so freaking cool. Gail would like to know, will you be writing another book in a series? Yeah, tell us about, so this is your first book, your first thriller. So I just also want to tell you guys, fun fact about Alice, she also has written for Star Wars. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But this is your first thriller. This is your first book in the Alex Carter series, your wildlife biologist. Tell us, what are you already thinking about the next one? And what's Alex going to be doing next?
I am indeed. So keeping with
Yeah.
this theme of wanting to address the species that are suffering the most, like as soon as possible,
Yeah.
my next book is already off to my editor, so it's finished.
Wow.
And except for the revision period and all that. It's about polar bears, and Alex
Oh.
Carter in this one is up on the Western Hudson Bay, like way up in the Canadian Arctic, studying a population of polar bears, the Western Hudson Bay population, which is also in rapid decline. And due to the
Oh.
shrinking sea ice, which is just getting worse every year,
Mm.
polar bears, as you know, have to bulk up and get super fat during the summer because they fast for most of the winter. And the thing that they get the most fat from is seals. So they will, catch seals off sea ice. But when there's no sea ice to use as a platform, they're forced to land where the food isn't nutritious, and they're just starving now during the winter. And they
Oh.
can't nurse their cubs, and it's really bad. So yes, Alex is up in the Canadian Arctic trying to help with that situation.
So Alice, I love that you are, first of all, combining your work, your life's work, and your life's passion, your two of your life's work and two passions of preserving, of dedicating yourself to preserving our endangered and and desperately needing assistance endangered species, with writing thrillers and writing books. I think this is so fascinating and so cool, and I love that you are using the skeleton of a thriller, the paradigm of a thriller, to spread the word in a non-preachy, non it's educational, but it's not, sit down and learn from a textbook kind of way. Like, we're learning as we're reading, but we're also wildly entertained. I think this is so cool that you're using the mode of thrillers, the model of thrillers, to teach us and to tell us and to spread the word about these endangered creatures and help us bring awareness to it. This is so fabulous and so cool. So thank you for using thrillers to educate and to inspire and to help us bring attention to these important issues. This is really, really great. I absolutely love this.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
so what do you think you'll be doing after the polar bears? Have you thought
Oh,
that
yes.
far?
I'm actually right now, in that stage where I'm mulling over the third book. Since now they've been in two kind of cold, snowy locations with wolverines in Montana and polar bears in the Canadian Arctic. I thought maybe something warm like Mexican gray wolves in New Mexico, or
Ooh.
condors maybe in Zion. I'd love to do something in like Utah Canyon country. So I'm still batting around ideas about what I could do for the third book.
Batting around, because fun fact,
It might be bad, so I didn't mean to make that pun, but
I love a good pun. No, because you've also studied this rare kind of bats. Everyone should go check out Alice's website. You can also see a really cute picture of a pika. Is that a mouse or something? It's a cute little furry gerbil looking creature.
it depends on if you live in Siberia, it's a pika, and if you live here in Canada, it's a pika.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
they are just fascinating. That's one of my main studies that's one of the main focus species that I do. The
Oh,
pika is a small relative of the rabbit, actually, little bunny, and they
oh,
live in
nice.
really high altitude locations in rock slides. So they don't hibernate. So it's really cool during the summer. You'll see them. They're just fascinating. They're very vocal, and they'll dart out and they'll grab a bunch of greenery, and just their mouths will be stuffed, and they'll run back and they pile it in the sun to dry and cure like hay. And that's what they eat over the winter. And so they're just neat. And I've noticed that they have different dialects. Like in the Sierra Nevadas, they speak one way, and if you're in the Canadian Rockies, they have a different dialect. So it's really cool. But like
Wow.
the wolverine, they have no protections at all. And so say like 10 years ago, they're at 8,000 feet on a slope in a mountain. Well, now they had to move up to like 9,000 feet because it's getting so warm, and pikas actually die if they're exposed to temperatures above 70 degrees for only like 20 minutes.
Oh my
So
God.
they have to keep moving higher up the mountain to get where it's cooler, but then they reach the top and that population will just die out if there's nowhere higher to go. And they're
Oh,
disappearing all over the Sierra Nevadas and the Great Basin. And I actually mentioned them in A Solitude of Wolverines. So they're just neat. I love pikas. Oh, and I didn't mention the title. I was saying about the group name and the
yeah.
species name. So I realized I had to make up my own group name for Wolverines. So that's why I picked A Solitude, because they're so solitary and they're alone most of the time.
Well, I absolutely love the title because it is so ominous. A Solitude of Wolverines. I mean, it's just so fabulous. I absolutely, absolutely love it. And I love the cover as well. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
Isn't it great? Oh my
It
gosh,
is. Tell us the story of the cover.
the artist is so amazing. So they, it's so rare for an author to have any feedback at all on the cover, and they got my thoughts on it. And I mean, it was just exactly how I wanted it, this dramatic mountain landscape. And I wanted Alex in an action pose, and in her outdoor gear. And it just turned out so incredible. I'm so happy with it.
Oh, I love it. And did they love your title, The Solitude of Wolverines, as well?
They did, yes. I'm
Yay.
happy to say.
That's awesome, because you've also studied grizzlies, wolves, spotted owls, jaguars, endangered bats, and more. I mean, you've really worked with a wide variety of animal species and birds. It's really it's so cool. I mean, you could do so much. We want to read about Alex and the jaguars, Alex and the owl. I mean, I love owls. Owls are so cool. But as a writer, you were also selected to attend Launchpad, which is a NASA-funded writing workshop aimed at bringing accurate science to fiction. But you've also written for Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the TV show Supernatural, as well as for Star Wars video games. Tell us about that.
Those were all so fun. So after I went to graduate school, I moved down to San Francisco to work for George Lucas's video game company. And up to then, I'd been writing and submitting and had no luck. But then after I worked for George Lucas and had these Star Wars credits under my belt, I started to get more and more opportunities, which was great. And writing the Buffy the Vampire Slayer book was so much fun. I loved the show, and 20th Century Fox just really let me fly with it. So, as long as you stay true to the show, they just, you can make up whatever your imagination can think of. So just stay true to the characters. And so I wrote those. And that was also an important part, I think, in my evolution as a writer, because the deadlines were incredibly short. They were 3 months. So when I first got the first Buffy gig, I thought, oh boy, am I gonna be able to do this? And I did. And in fact, I found that writing a book in that short of a deadline really works for me, because I'm living and breathing with these characters every day. I'm waking up and just working on them with no exceptions, and it really made the plot feel so cohesive, like I was living it. And so now, even though I have longer deadlines, I still tend to write in a fairly short period of time, just to really get into the feeling of the book. And it's almost like you're living the book as the characters are doing it. You're just the chronicler of these characters who are off having adventures.
I love that. I love that. And that works because, I mean, you are the chronicler of these wild creatures and their lives as well. And it's that's really cool. Karen has a question. Welcome, Janine, as well. Karen would like to know, do you have anything you turn to while writing to keep you inspired? Any books or music? Karen, great question.
I have to write in absolute silence. Even if someone walks in the room, it'll completely derail me.
Me too.
But as far as inspiration goes, absolutely. I have this little portable word processor called an Alpha Smart. Have you ever heard of those, Sarah?
No.
They're awesome. They don't make them anymore, unfortunately, but you can buy them on eBay for like $20. But they're like a full-size keyboard, and they turn on immediately like a calculator. So you don't have to wait for it to boot up. So if you have an idea, you just press on, you type. They can store hundreds of pages of text, and they run for 700 hours on 2 AA batteries or 3 AA batteries. And I've only changed the batteries every 7 years or something like that. And they only weigh a pound. So I can just stick this thing in my backpack and go out and sit on a boulder and just be inspired by nature around me and write these scenes for the books while I'm actually in the setting that my book is set in. So I just love my Alpha Smart. And it really, the other thing I do to keep going is, especially with these tight deadlines, I make a spreadsheet of every scene and who's in it and just a little thumbnail sketch of what's going to happen. So I'm not like outlining it to death, but that's nice. You know, when you get up in the morning and you're like, oh gosh, what scene am I supposed to write? I can just look on my spreadsheet and immediately see, okay, it's this one. Also, if I'm not in the mood to write that scene, I can just skip ahead a couple columns and just write a different one, but always keep my place and know I have to go back and do that.
Oh, wow. Karen's saying she loves that. Karen, me too. This is so cool. So I had never heard of of an Alpha Smart. That sounds like an amazing invention. I'm surprised they are still not, that we're not, everyone doesn't have one, because that sounds really fabulous. And then, okay, so then you use a spreadsheet and you outline roughly just one thumbnail of each scene. And you do that at the beginning of the project or the beginning of each day?
I do it at the beginning of the project. So
Okay.
I'll write, have you heard of this thing called the Snowflake Method? It's,
No, I've never
it's
heard of
really
that. Tell
cool.
us about that.
So you write, so neat. You write like, you start and you just get bigger and bigger and more complex. So when you first start out, you do like one sentence of what your book's about. And then you do a paragraph, and then you do a page, and then 2 pages. And then you do that for every character, like one sentence about each character's arc. And then you do a whole paragraph for that character, and then a page for that character. And the last step is making this massive spreadsheet. So by then, you really have a sense of what your characters are going to face and how they're going to grow and what their goal is going to be. Have you ever had that feeling where you're writing a book and you think, oh no, I should have worked this other element in much sooner? I didn't even think of this element, you know, but
Yes.
that would work
Yeah.
way better. So the cool thing about this spreadsheet is I don't have that feeling anymore, because by then I've worked all the kinks out and I know where to drop all the little seeds of suspense. And I'm not like, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to rewrite this whole section. So it's
Okay, this sounds good. I think I need to start implementing that because I do have that sense every day. So that is that is super helpful. Gail is saying Alice just seems so nice, and yet she writes about scary Wolverines. Gail, I confess, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, here's Alice. She's just so sweet and so nice. And yet she's out there in these incredibly remote locations, probably alone in houses that have no stairs and windows that have no window panes, fending for herself amongst the jaguars and the Wolverines, and maybe, you know, trying to like hunt for her dinner, scrounge up dinner at night. I don't know. Alice, tell us about that. How do you stay so kind? How do you stay so gentle and so kind when you are both A, dealing with writing about scary things, and B, writing about heartbreakingly sad things like the potential extinction of a species? I mean, it's like that could really break your heart. How do you manage that? That's something I struggle with.
that is such a challenge, and right now especially it is just so heartbreaking, and the Endangered Species Act is under attack.
Yes.
It's being severely weakened, and NEPA as well, and it's so depressing, and it's really hard to not get mired down in that, and I certainly do at times, for sure. And I thought that was one thing that really inspired me to write this was, you know, you mentioned before I'm combining the thriller with this wildlife theme, because I thought, you know, if I write a nonfiction book about what, say, wolverines or bats are going through, it might reach a handful of people that probably
Yeah.
already, you know, are on board with it. But if I write a thriller,
Yeah.
then maybe people will read it for the suspense and action, but then think, wow, the Wolverine is really cool. And in the back of the book, and I'm wanting to do this for each of the books in the series, there's a section in there where you can go to learn more about each species, and even volunteer opportunities. Like there are volunteer opportunities in Washington if you want to go out in the field and track wolverines in the snow, or different organizations that you can support that support wolverine research. So I've been trying to keep my spirits up and think of positive ways that I can inspire change or get people interested or fascinated by these amazing creatures that have no protection. Let's write letters to our representatives and senators. And there's a thing called the Paw and Fin Act right now that's sitting in the House of Representatives. It hasn't been brought to a vote, but it will not only completely restore all of the damage that's been done to the Endangered Species Act, but strengthen it in addition to that. So if we could get Nancy Pelosi to vote on the Paw and Fin Act or bring it to a vote on the House floor, that would be great.
Okay, so you heard it here first. We all need to call our representatives and ask them to bring the Pawn Fin Act to a vote on the House floor. And we need to call Nancy Pelosi and ask her to bring it to a vote, because we do need to protect we cannot let these species go extinct on our watch. It can't happen on our watch. I know I feel personal responsibility. I know all of our Mighty Mystery fans do as well. We're woke, we care, we want our world to exist. We want our wildlife creatures to exist. So let's all take that action of making that happen. I know I will do that. So thank you, Alice, for giving us those steps. Because I think so many times we care, we want to do something, but it feels overwhelming and we don't know where to start. So having that concrete step is really helpful. Thank you.
And I think a lot of times maybe people view things as separate. Like they'll think of the Wolverines as this animal, or wolf as an animal that's sort of out there in the wilderness, sort of away from where we're living. But it's amazing how interconnected things are. Like, for example, in Yellowstone National Park, when they reintroduced the wolves, the rivers changed course.
Yes.
Have you read about this?
I saw the video. There's a video out there and it's amazing. And they do it in hyperspeed because there were too many deer. So when they brought the wolves back, the wolves hunted their dinner, which were deer, which brought the Lyme disease rates down, which then allowed all these other creatures to come back, which then allowed the otters to come back. And then the otters built dams, and then it literally changed the way that the rivers flowed and revitalized this area, which had been completely messed up because humans had hunted wolves and destroyed the ecosystem.
Exactly. Yes. It's fascinating how interconnected.
Go watch the video. It's so cool. It's on YouTube. I will see it. You can see it. It's really, really cool. Okay. And Gail is reminding us all to vote. Gail, yes, ma'am.
Vote. I just did on Friday. So
I voted last Sunday at Fenway Park.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a once in a lifetime. It was really, really special. But I voted for a better world and for our species, endangered species as well. So let's all get our booties to the polls. All right, I see we're almost out of time here. Does anyone have any last questions? Does anyone have any last questions for Alice about her writing, about anything else? My partner in crime, Margaret Pennard, fellow author Margaret Pennard, is saying, what a treat. Alice Henderson, she's sharing a review, has delivered a treasure of a novel, and to readers' delight, a promise of more where this came from. Yes, we cannot wait to read more Alex books, because this is so cool. Alice, what is the best writing advice that you'd like to share with our listeners, with our friends here?
I would say, if you're just starting out in your writing, one thing I wish I had known earlier in my career was obviously we can't right now, but go to conferences and meet editors and agents in person. If I had known that sooner, I was submitting, was going to the slush pile, but if you've talked to an editor or agent at a conference and can directly send them something, that is just the way to go. And I would also say the most important thing is persistence. Sometimes it feels like even if you're an established writer, you're constantly starting over. If you've changed genres, for example, and maybe your agent doesn't represent that. And I would say just persistence and just never give up. And that's the most important thing, I think, more than any other tool that a writer has, is perseverance. Don't get down about rejections. It's so easy, maybe, feel sad for a day, but then, just keep submitting and submitting and submitting.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Gail says, this has been very inspiring and so nice to tie in the different aspects of a belief system into one place. Gail, I couldn't have said it better. Absolutely love that. Alice, I want to thank you so much for coming on Mighty Mysteries today and sharing your beautiful book, A Solitude of Wolverines, out today. We'll drop a link here. You can buy it through bookshop.org and support independent bookstores, and learn more about Wolverines and this exciting, page-turning, nail-biting tale of suspense, this thriller, which has earned such incredible reviews from all of these amazing other thriller authors. So thank you, Alice, so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for your beautiful work in the world, for doing all that you do for our wildlife, for our four-legged friends and our two-legged winged friends, for all of our paw and fin friends. And thank you for writing this incredible book. I know I am so excited to read it. I know everyone else is too. Karen saying thank you both so much. Karen, thanks so much for joining us. It has been absolutely wonderful to have you. And thank you again to my partner in crime and fellow author, Margaret Bernard, for producing things over on Facebook. I really appreciate you being part of a team with me. And Alice, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Sarah. This has just been a delight. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yay. Well, I've learned so much today. My heart feels full. My mind feels full. I just feel energized, inspired, and excited to read a great book and learn more about these creatures I didn't know anything about. So this is really cool. Thank you so much. Yay. Okay. A Solitude of Wolverines out today, blazing up the pages. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alice. Have a great day.
You too. Bye, Sarah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.